What's up, my precious pack, and welcome back to VEGA Conflict. So, before I get started with anything else, I'd like to talk about a few comments as well as some stuff from the Dreadnought idea. First, yes, the concept idea wasn't fully there. The objective of that was to make sure that any of you could also add information to it as well, because if I just threw an idea out there and you all agreed, it wouldn't be viable in the game, because it needs more than just one person to deal with it. It needs more than just one person to think it over. If one person were to come up with the idea, set the idea up, then the idea were to go live, not everybody would enjoy it, only that one person would. The objective of that is to encourage all of you to think, as well as alter the idea until it is beneficial to as many people as can be thought of and possible. The stats of the ship, the reason I didn't give any example stats was simply because they would be different, varying on each tier that they represent, and that would be up to Kixeye. That was just a little too lazy to actually put stats in, which is no surprise. Second, my effeminate voice. I just have to laugh a little bit at that. The only problem that you had with what I say is the opening. That means you're enjoying the rest of the video except for the opening. That's fine, just skip 10 seconds in, you'll be able to skip all of that. You don't have to listen to that, it's up to you. Third, time for me to talk about the Redux event and what's taken me so long to get another video out. Well, first off, I've been grinding away at the Behemoth. We'll talk about it in just a few minutes after I talk about the Redux. Or more like the lack of prizes for the Redux. Now, I'm not talking lack of actual prizes, there's plenty in here, but there is a lack of new prizes. And the only good thing in here is the Destroyer and all the other weapons. Its weapons aren't all that great. Unless you're going to be basing, then it'll be just fine. Oh wait, no, battleships still rule the basing aspect because they can just carpet nuke an entire base, because that's what they're made for. But let's just talk about the prize recommendations list and what should be what you should pick up based on your tier. First off, if you want to pick up the boxes, go right ahead. I still wouldn't recommend them because they're not anything decent. They're extremely old tech in comparison to the tech we have now. It should be all Xeno Division, Axis, or above, and instead it's a mixture of Demon Core, Xeno Division, and the Axis Carrier. It should be higher tier than that for everything. Second, credit items for ships that you actually can't buy. Well, you can pick up some of the Destroyer blueprints, but my guess is that Kixeye currently has them. Not quite locked, but they have them overpriced. I can't see the price here, and I can easily open the view? No, the briefing and see it, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to think it's overpriced, because they typically are. Second, instead of actually blueprints for all of these good items, well, this isn't good, this is just a joke. For all of the good items, they offer them instead as credit items. What's the point in having a limited number of items if you don't have the blueprint with it? So they at least should have had each of the blueprints for each of the items that is limited. From my perspective, it would have been better because it would have given the players the opportunity to pick up the blueprint and then a few credit items to skip the first initial setup for a few of their ships. Second, the recommended prize list is the Medusa Destroyer, skip the Atomic Driver, the Nova Missiles, skip the Ballistic Sabex, skip the turrets, and skip most of the shielding because it's an Umbra ship. They don't use shielding, and if that's the target I'm recommending, you don't want anything with it. Wait, that's about it. There's nothing else for it. Isn't that a bit sad? Well, yes. And if you want, pick up the event boxes, resources, and time tokens that match what you're building. Except for the overpriced Altarian time tokens, because almost, well, 250,000 more and you'd be at an even million per time token. That's a little bit steep for a 24-hour time token, especially in comparison to when you drop down to the Axis and Xeno Division. They just drop in price drastically, but then when you look at the power levels, they do drop drastically as well. That doesn't mean that stuff needs to be overpriced. 750,000 for old tech. That's a bit much. 1 million for a turret that is effectively garbage in comparison to the fleece that's supposed to stop. Second, your counter pierce is useless because the vast majority of ships from the Umbra faction have extremely strong counter chain and counter pierce, so it'll hit one ship and stop. That'll be it. So that is a useless turret before it even was added, and whichever monkey came up with it, just go ahead and take it out of the shop now, because its AoE is good, but if anyone's smart, they're going to have their ships spread out a bit. You're only going to hit one ship due to the formation that they spread them out in. And you're not going to do anything else, and that's it. Oh, and you're going to lose the vast majority of your damage because most ships are resistant to alien tech. And the vast majority of the time, you can push the alien resistance up towards 70 or higher % just by using alien resistant armor and tech, especially the Altarians. Okay, now let me explain to you why I said not to pick up the atomic driver. Oh wait, there's one more prize. If you've cleared out the other prizes, you can work on picking up the boxes, the Mark II boxes. You can only get 10 of them, so you can only produce 2 of any Mark II ship that you see here. However, it's better than none. Okay, on to the atomic driver. This is what could have been a good gun is garbage. And that is only due to the speed. First off, they gave it AoE, which was completely fine. We have the Gladius driver and a few others that explode on impact. And again, that is completely fine. But that abysmal flight speed means that it is utterly useless in any type of PvP, fleet versus fleet combat. And basing it'll be just fine because, well, modules don't move last time I checked. And it's to increase the speed would be horrendous, but that's not the problem because you can increase the normal atomic driver speed so it becomes something decent. So on short range ships it'll be just fine. However, on all the blight weapon variations, because Kixeye still hasn't added any specials in that affect the blight weaponry, such as range, damage, charge time, anything like that we've had with every other tier up till now, it gets the abysmal 850 meters per second. Now, to put that in perspective, let's just take a look at my base turrets for a minute. If you attacked my base with one of those, let's say you attack the Storm Driver. 1, it'll outrange you. Actually, no, this is the Gemini? Yeah. 1, it'll outrange you. 2, by default, it'll hit you almost twice as fast as you'll hit it, only due to how quickly the shell travels. Storm Driver is faster than that. And again, it will hit you well before you hit it. However, the difference is damage. Kixeye's left the turrets behind in the game, and since they don't actually keep up with current tech, and you never actually see a turret from the current tech while the current tech is viable, bases will always be left behind. So upgrading beyond blueprint turrets to all of the BS of reusable item turrets is utterly useless, and the XP cost that comes with them just isn't worth upgrading. Now, if you want to pick up the gun for some reason, you decide, well, let's just have it on a ship for fun. That'll be fine. It'll be fine against AI targets because they're so stupid they just fly right at you to close in. On a destroyer, that'll be fine because you'll be able to shoot them as many times as you want at close range. Unless they start to strafe like frigates and stuff. Then you're going to have a problem because you're not going to be able to hit them. That's where a mixture of weapons comes in. So if you do use the atomic driver, make sure you use a shorter range missile weapon to also clean up the mess after they've closed in through the atomic driver's effective usefulness. Of which it has a very weak one because it only has 3,000 to 5,200... Wait a minute. Is that the exact same as the Lancer driver? Yes, it is, and the Lancer driver sucked for the exact same reason in my eyes. I do have it on a few ships, but behind that Lancer driver on a few different ships is the vast majority of missiles or other items to help deal with the targets that slip right on by it because it's garbage. I would recommend over either of those that you still use the Eclipse driver just because it's got the best range out of all of them and the best lowest range out of all of them, has great flight speed which makes it viable in PvP, it has shield bypass by default, and it just gets better. Now I'm not going to hit any targets yet because I'll make a secondary showcase of the targets later on. But the vast majority of everything I want to talk about today was the Redux event, the overall lack of new prizes, lack of specials for the Umbra faction thus far. Actually, I only think they've gotten 2 specials. They've only gotten the magnetic collars, which is good for some ships, but useless on others. And the Sunder Thrusters, which again are good on some ships, and useless on others. And especially if they have no weight requirement or anything like that, but they have the damage threshold. So you have to do damage just to activate them. That's something I wasn't interested in, so I'll continue using my weight increasing harmonic thrusters because that's just how good they are. Now on to the other aspect, and that was the Dreadnought, the Behemoth more specifically. Everyone complaining that it sucks. Well, I would like to remind all of you that what ship, unmark upgraded, is good? Name one, just one, that isn't the Sovereign and the Tyrant. Name one that isn't one of those two that isn't good at Mark 1 when it has no access to extremely heavy weapons, extremely heavy armor, access to heavy specials, and things like that. Name one. I'll wait. Because at the fully marked upgrade state for this ship, it will be very, very powerful, and I've been able to push the damage per second with harmonic assistance to over 33,000 damage per second. And that is by no far weak, and if you're fighting against Altarian class targets, it's going to be doing 38,000 damage per second to a single target. That means you strip off their ablative layer of armor in 1 second, then destroy the ship the next, even if they have extreme levels of resistance. And I find that extremely funny. But I can show the fitting. First off, it says 8 weapons, which actually double to 16 to anything being shot at in the front, which is where the battleship style comes in. It has 4 special slots. I'm only ever going to use 2 of them. It has 4 armor slots, 4 ablative armor slots, and again, I'm only going to be using the armor slots. The ablative slots aren't that needed because it actually has built-in ablative armor. The least I would say is just bump up the ablative armor until you have around 15,000 or so, and you'll be good. Secondary slots, resistance slots, they're going to be useless because of how heavy the ship is, and the fact that the Umbra tier hasn't gotten any unique resistors yet that offer better superiority over the previous variations, i.e. in the variation of taking up less mass. And then you get your 2 squadron slots at Mark 4 and Mark 5 is when you get them. But at Mark 6, you get the rest of your armor health and damage per second. At Mark 5, you still only get 80%, so you'd have a 180% increase. Mark 6, you get that additional amount, the weight, and everything like that. Oh, and the maximum mass increases a little bit more. So, unlike with other variations of ships that get increased stats when they go to Mark 6, well, in the form of increased sector speed and cargo, this actually gets more viable. Well, what I say would be more viable opportunities because it gains additional mass. That's going to be it, everybody. If you have anything additional to say or add, or if I missed a prize, or if there's actually a prize in the list that I didn't talk about that should be on the list due to viability in the game being useful for the players, feel free to call me out and say so below in the comment section. If you like this content, feel free to leave a like. If you want to see more like this, feel free to subscribe, browse through the channel's videos. There's always something that you may like better than VEGA. P.S. Take a look at all the other games because I don't even like VEGA. And as always, everybody, I'll see you later.